Welcome to On the Horizon, where our vision meets the ground. Join me, Levi Hall, as we discuss how our local cooperative can help with your success. Welcome back to another episode of On the Horizon. This week, I'm hoping you're sitting in a combine watching big numbers on the yield monitor. And while you're doing that, I hope you take the time to listen to this episode with Angie Johnson from North Dakota State University. Angie is the Farm and Ranch Safety Coordinator for North Dakota State University. And this program is a newer program that has exploded in popularity. I was excited to bring on somebody to talk farm safety and somebody with some real world knowledge. And Angie definitely fit that bill. And I was a little bit concerned that safety can be a boring topic. I am not going to lie, but Angie delivers a knockout performance in this one. It is real world. It is relatable. It is common sense safety. And if you are somebody that wants to be there to watch the transition of your farm to the next generation, I encourage you to listen to this podcast and take the words to heart. I can't say enough good things about how great this conversation ended up being. I hope you enjoy the show.
In the heart of North Dakota, where the Yellowstone meets the Missouri, lies a story that has never been fully told. This is where our journey began. In 1929, a group of farmers saw the potential of this land and decided to build something lasting. They created a cooperative where the spirit of the West meets modern ingenuity. From our humble beginnings, with just 110 founding members, we grew alongside the community. Our first service station in 1936 was more than a place to fuel up. It was a symbol of progress and a promise of better things to come. Through the decades, our cooperative evolved, marking key milestones along the way. Each step forward, each innovation, was driven by a commitment to our members and our community. Our strength has always come from the land and the people who work it. The sweat of our brows, the calluses on our hands. They are the foundation of Horizon Resources. Today, Horizon Resources stands as a beacon of innovation and community support. Our operations span essential sectors, driven by technology and a commitment to excellence in the services we provide. From providing top-quality fuel to boosting crop yields with advanced agronomy solutions, we are the backbone of our community. We deliver the fuel that powers your day, the grain marketing that maximizes your return, and the agronomy expertise that nurtures your land, all with the emblem of Horizon Resources as our guarantee. Our commitment to technological innovation means we bring the latest advancements directly to your fields, maximizing yields and profitability. Over the years, we've given back over $250,000 to local causes, supporting everything from 4-H, rural emergency services, youth sports, and more. Our commitment extends beyond our products to the heart of what makes our community great. At Horizon Resources, we're more than a team, we're a family. We invest in our people, offering opportunities for growth and a supportive work environment. As we look to the future, Horizon Resources remains committed to innovation, community, and the success of our members. Join us and be part of a story that continues to unfold. Horizon Resources, where tradition meets progress, and together, we forge a path forward.
Welcome to another episode of On the Horizon. This week's guest is Angie Johnson, the Farm and Ranch Safety Coordinator for North Dakota State University. Angie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here today.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself? Let's get the ball rolling that way, and how you got into the career line that you're in right now.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been with North Dakota State University Extension since 2015. So I actually started as a county-based extension agent in beautiful Steele County, North Dakota. I served in that position covering many, many different aspects of agriculture, crop production, so the agronomy side of things, as well as livestock and 4-H youth development and horticulture. And I served in that role for 7 years, and then that taking this opportunity to become a statewide safety coordinator in terms of the farm and ranch health and safety program. And really, what spearheaded our program was when COVID started, we really needed a task force to identify what are some of the challenges that producers are facing. We were in a really tough situation in terms of getting workers during that time. And it was more than just COVID. We realized that that was a problem. It was really this big concept of the hazards and lack of safety programs and trainings for our producers and their families. And so that really ripple affected into creating this position to have somebody solely responsible, or at least putting a team together to tackle farm safety and put more teeth into a full farm safety program for the state of North Dakota.
Sure. So what's an average year look like for you? When's your busy season, and what's that all look like?
Oh man, haven't really had a quiet season yet, but I would say for sure our summer season is huge, and that's when we offer our youth farm safety programs, specifically our farm safety camp. And so, not a lot of people know this, but if you're going to have a teenager between the ages of 14 and 15 work on a farm or ranch other than your own farm operation or the family's operation, they actually have to go through a certification program that's either offered by a cooperative extension system or an ag education classroom. And so here at North Dakota State, we offer 3 statewide or regional-based farm safety camps that are 3-day, two overnight programs where these young people are learning how to drive tractors, skid steers, all-terrain vehicles, as well as the practicing farm first aid, getting to practice how to hook up equipment, and actually we do some baling of hay as well. And so putting all of those concepts together and then applying them out into the field per se, and getting to partner with electric co-ops on power line safety, additional fire safety with 911 emergency responders as well. So it's a huge program where it's completely 100% hands-on. There are no PowerPoints delivered. Everything is hands-on when it comes to the driving, as well as the lessons and activities that our county-based extension agents teach with this program. So it's a huge undertaking, but it's well worth it. We certify about 50 kids throughout the state of North Dakota each year through this program. And not to toot our own horn, but we're also a national award-winning program as well, because very few states offer this type of program like we do here in North Dakota.
I was going to say, toot your horn away, because that sounds like a phenomenal program. It sounds like something I should still do, even at my age, with my experience. It sounds like just a phenomenal program. And the fact that this state takes such an emphasis and puts it on such a large industry, it's very practical knowledge. So that's great to hear. Where are those camps located at, Angie?
Oh, great question. And so in 2024, so this past summer season, our camps were located in Minot, Devil's Lake, and Bismarck. And so our plan is we hope to rotate a couple of those locations. So in the past, we were in Fargo, Williston, and Bismarck, and so now we've gotten through one rotation cycle. So we'll go back to Fargo next year in 2025, as well as look at going back to Williston and trying to keep the Bismarck location, just because it's so central for families to attend. And we had kids come from Montana and South Dakota this year. So, I mean, we are really extending the reach. I don't know how families are knowing about it, but they're hearing about our program, and they're coming from all over the states up here. And it's exploded. We actually have wait lists for our camps because we've had such a positive, overwhelming response with this program.
And you said these are fairly new camps, right? These started during COVID, or have these been around longer than that?
That's a great question. So, just to take a step back, this federal law that I talked a little bit about earlier, in terms of, if you're in that age bracket, you need to attend a certification program. So every county across our state, as well as every other state in the U.S., has those county extension agents and their county agent system. They can deliver this program. They can deliver the training. And so what we've done in North Dakota, because it's a lot, it takes a lot of eyes, it takes a lot of bodies in order to make sure everybody is safe when they're operating those machinery and pieces of equipment. So what we've done is really get together and regionalize. And so we started doing that when I took on this position. I took this position on the fall of 21. So the summer of 2022 is when we really started to ramp up and create this regional camp-based system. So that way we have enough help and enough county extension agents to be able to get together and train a larger group of kids, versus everybody trying to do their own training and struggling to get enough volunteers to help with the program. So about 2022 is when we really started exploring and experimenting with kind of this 3-day, 2-night regional camp-based system for our program.
That's awesome. This is a great program. Last question on this program before we get into the rest of the podcast: is there a cost if one of our listeners wants to send a kid? Is there a cost for these camps?
Yeah, and so we do have to have a charge, right? And that's simply because it's getting really tough. Our most expensive cost, to be honest with you, is food and lodging. And so when we plan our camps, we actually strive to plan a camp that within a community that has a college or a university system, because then we can lodge in dorms. And when you can stay overnight in a dorm versus a hotel, there is a huge cost savings. So that's helped our program a lot, and also provide dining options, because dining at the college is considerably more affordable than having food catered in. And so with all that being said, we do charge $300 per camper for our program, and we do have, and I think this year we had over 50 sponsors really help chip in some sponsorship dollars, because every kid goes home with tools they need to be safe on the farm. So for example, every participant gets a really nice set of hearing protection earmuffs. So really high quality, 35 decibel level hearing protection. So if they're going back home, and a lot of these kids are mowing lawn all summer as well on the farmyard, giving them those tools is important, because if we, if we're preaching to them that you need to protect your hearing and you need to protect yourself, we better darn well give them the tools to be able to do that at home. And so they get hearing protection, they get a tire pressure gauge. So doing that pre-op check, making sure when we walk around the equipment, whatever it may be, are our tires inflated properly? So they each get that. They each get a farm safety t-shirt. They get an ATV helmet, because ATVs are a great tool, but they are extremely dangerous. And so we want everyone, not just young people, but everyone to have that helmet. So they'll get one right at our camp that's properly fitted for them as well. They get to build their own farm first aid kit. So we don't just hand them a kit and say, here you go. They actually have to build it and learn what the supplies are. And we partner with healthcare facilities. So those professionals come and teach the kids what the supplies are and how to use them. So how do we use those items, especially, for example, a tourniquet? If we have a massive bleed or blood loss situation on the farm, how do we use that tourniquet properly and safely, so we can get that person to a hospital and get them the care that they need? And so our program, it's really important to me and our team that we give these kids these huge tools for them to be able to take home and have to use on the farm. So to go back, it's a $300 fee, and that is to cover food and lodging and some supplies, whereas our sponsorships help kick in to help provide all of that personal protective equipment and tools to be able to take home and work on the farm with.
That's awesome. I think about myself as a 14, 15-year-old, and I think I would have eaten $300 worth of groceries in one day. So if you're mom or dad out there, this might be cheap daycare. So plus you get all those extra benefits. This is a unbelievable program. Really excited. Glad we got to talk about that. So Angie, before you got into this role where you're putting on these camps and before you were an extension agent, give us a little bit of your background growing up. Did you grow up in the farming and ranching community?
Oh man, did I grow up? Absolutely. I still don't think I've grown up. Still, I still live on the farm, and I've got beef cattle with my family as well as my own flock of ewes, and so actually starting to fall lamb right now, which has been a fun project to take on. So definitely, agriculture is a huge part of my life. Not with just this role at NDSU, but also I'm proud to call myself a farmer as well. The crops we raise are primarily for feed for our livestock, but we do dabble in soybean, silage corn, alfalfa, the typical crops in our area. So I've been farming with my family for a very long time, and those roots in agriculture are what got me here today. And I think it's so important that if I'm gonna talk the talk, I better walk the walk too, and really connect with farmers and ranchers when it comes to how do we be safe on the farm, and where are we getting our advice, and getting it from somebody that definitely understands the culture and the lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's so important when you take somebody that has no operational experience and put them into a safety role, whether it's at a cooperative like ours or it's somebody presenting to the farms. There's a lot of times where if you're just a scholar of safety, it's tough to relate. It's so easy to say, well, here's best practice. Here's best practice. But to have someone that's strapped their boots on, that's woke up at 6 a.m. to get out and get after it, those are the people that understand daily what's happening. When nothing's going right and you've got to go out and grab that thing out of the baler, are you shutting that PTO off? Are you taking that extra time? Are you putting the tractor in park? It's simple things like that that kind of snowball into big accidents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really important to me, and something that I always remind myself. And when we talk to producers and advocate for safety practices, we also have to remember what's practical, right? And so there's what the gold standard is, right? Which we want everybody to do. And so how do we work together to figure out a solution that what is practical, what will work, but then also what are those standards? What are those things that we can't take? We can't take shortcuts, that we got to practice every single time. And especially with farm families, so with young kiddos on that farm site, we got to be role models. We have to role model safety. We can't just say, yeah, we're safe all the time. Or, the most common comment I get is, well, I've still got 9 out of 10 fingers. And it's like, no, we really need to role model safety. And, if we want our children to wear helmets, for example, when driving ATVs, then as a parent, guardian, employer, we better practice what we preach as well. And that's going to get, these young individuals to adopt those safe techniques much earlier in their life, and keep that as a good habit. So absolutely, the more we can relate, be open and honest with each other on what's practical, but also what are those standards that we can't take shortcuts on when
Yeah.
it comes to safety.
So we're really getting into durum and canola harvest out here, and out here with all the small grains, a lot of things kind of get ready at the same time, but harvest is really kicking up. What are some good pointers that these guys need to be thinking about while they're whether they're driving their semis into town, because our elevator is in downtown Williston, or they're going to the bin site, or operating the equipment in the field? Give us some safety tips that we need to be thinking about with each of those scenarios.
Yeah, safety doesn't have to be this complex and overbearing, idea or thought, right? So what I'm going to start with is slow down. Harvest is a stressful time. We always are watching the weather because we're waiting for that next rain shower that could totally be a hindrance on getting out there to be able to combine those crops. And so we're always working against the clock. And I can't stress enough just to take the time to slow down, because when we're in a rush, when we're in a hurry, that's when bad things happen. That's when we make poor choices, and that's when mistakes happen. And so taking the time to breathe a little bit, and even, and this is, guys are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but getting a good night's sleep, taking the time to make sure we're resting, because the research shows, the data shows that when we're tired, when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed out and overworked physically and emotionally, that's when injuries can happen. That's when accidents and mistakes can happen. So if we can really take some time to sit down, have a family meal together, get to connect with your family, that those moments are gonna help you. Step one, just be able to breathe, catch your breath, and that allows you to be alert. So when you're driving in downtown Williston to drop off a semi-load of grain at the elevator, you need to be you need to be physically there, mentally there, cognitively there, and be ready and make the right choices when you're driving through. And so step one, just getting enough rest and taking breaks for yourself. And the other thing I can stress is, preventative maintenance. So taking the time to clean out your equipment at the end of the day, let it cool down, do some pre-maintenance and pre-op checks before you head out again, taking that time to grease your headers, to grease bearings, do some temperature checks as well. That's when combine fires can happen, is we overheat on some of those critical bearings, and when they bust loose, it can be pretty devastating. So also taking the time to blow that extra dirt and chaff and debris off, so we prevent some of those catastrophic combine fires from taking place.
Absolutely. It seems like every year, and I'm so thankful that we don't have a lot of sunflowers up here. I had a friend that worked in central South Dakota, big sunflower area. And it wasn't an if there would be a combine fire, it was when would the first one be. But it still happens whether you're in that type of, there's higher risk commodities for sure, but taking time to blow down, being vigilant when you stop the combine to get out and go to the bathroom, take a look around and just do a quick walk around. I know it feels like you're stopped for a little while, but that extra minute or two is not going to make a difference at the end of the day.
You bring up a great point. Taking that time. There's so many things you get to do at that time. Stretch your legs, for Pete's sakes. One of the biggest injuries that we see on farms, we don't hear about it because it's not an exciting, sexy news topic. It doesn't make the news, but falls are a big problem on farms. And so you think about how many hours you sit in that combine. And what happens is when you're sitting that long, your vertigo actually gets out of balance. And so the minute you stand up and start to make that descend down on your combine steps, your body's trying to get back into balance, and your legs have fallen asleep sometimes when you're sitting that long. So when you're trying to climb down, that's when your muscles can give, and that's when you can slip easily and fall from a significant height as well. And so if we can help prevent falls by taking more stretch breaks, whether that's to get up and go to the bathroom or just to check things, do a walk around like you had mentioned, that would be huge to help prevent those really life-threatening falls that can take place, because these combine ladders aren't short like they used to be. It's quite the climb to get up into the cab.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I'm a newer dad. I know that we've got a really big generational shift kind of starting in agriculture right now. Children are something, everyone loves to have young kids come out and ride in the combine, which is great. Talk a little bit about making sure that we keep our youngsters safe.
Yeah, this is, Levi, I won't lie to you. This is a tough subject and a tough conversation to have. And so there might be some folks out there that disagree, and that's okay. But my job is to help protect and keep you and that next generation safe. And so we got to remember, I know it's kind of a cliche there, we call them buddy seats in combines and tractors, but really they weren't designed or intended for children to sit in. And so ideally, I really strongly, I want people to think about this before they let that young child, that toddler, whatever it may be, sit in the cab with you. There's so many things that could go wrong. And I would just hope that if you do choose to have that child to ride with you, they have to be buckled. They need to be buckled. A lot of times what happens is these young toddlers, for whatever reason, there ends up being a door failure, whether that's because you hit a bump or you hit something hard, a trench, a washout. And we think those doors are latched securely and tight, but it doesn't take much to hit it and to be thrown out of that machine. And so child rollovers are unfortunately such a big problem. They're actually the number one when it comes to toddler deaths on farms is being run over specifically in a tractor related situation. And so just making sure that we really, if there is no seat, please don't add additional riders. That's just a huge risk. And so if there is a seat and you choose to have that young person ride with you, make them buckle up, be buckled in that seatbelt. And I've even seen, and I know this is hard, right? Because farming is such a culture. It's a way of life. We never think about it in terms of a job. We just don't, right? Because what agriculture is so unique. How many people also live on their work site? Construction workers, they don't live on the construction site. They go home or go to the hotel. They get to separate themselves. Whereas on a farm, our house is literally how many feet away from the shop, the bin site. Like, we live on our job site. And so it can make it really tricky for families because it's hard to separate where is our play area, where is our home area versus where is the work site area. It actually all gets to be blended together and kind of it's this gray area. And so as a family, making sure that we're setting boundaries, right? Where is it safe to play during harvest? Where can those kids not go? Like, you can't play hide and seek in the shop for this fall during harvest. It's just not safe. And, when it comes to riding, just really, really be careful. Especially if they're toddlers or in that age where they really should be in a car seat. It's that the vibrations that really can mess with, that developing. So I'm talking more on the baby side of things, riding in a car seat. The long periods of vibration can have some funky effects to the head and brain development. So I just really caution to make good choices when it comes to, if you want that young child, toddler to ride with you. So I know that was a lot to throw at everybody listening today, but it is a serious topic. And yes, I totally agree. I want our young people to grow up in agriculture. It's such an amazing profession. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my experiences. But I never want to lose a child due to an unintentional injury on a farm. It's just not worth it.
Absolutely. So the other thing we've got out here is it looks like we've been really blessed with rain. Early yield reports are coming in, and I would say that if they hold, things are going to be very busy this fall. It's going to be fantastic yields. That's going to create full grain bins. We're going to have grain bags out in the country. We're going to have piles. Let's talk a little bit about grain bin, grain bag safety, and that type of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So besides youth farm safety, grain bin safety is my next kind of hit home topic for me, just because it's impacted so many lives here in North Dakota and surrounding communities. So first things first, when working with grain bins or any grain handling system, making sure, if possible, I realize this isn't possible for everybody, but try not to work alone. When at least if you could tell somebody what you're going to be doing, as if you're climbing, this is a situation now, if you're climbing to go into a bin, make sure you've got somebody that at least knows where you're at, if not somebody on site with you. To be able to, if something were bad to happen, be able to call 911 and get help there immediately. And so I think next really goes, grain bin safety really is dependent upon what type of moisture is your grain coming in the bin at, and are we drying that down to the proper levels before we even consider putting it in the bin for short-term, medium-term, long-term storage? And I can't stress that enough. There should be no reason you have to go in a bin if you've got good quality grain that's going in to start, as well as oftentimes, besides grain moisture, one of the challenges, in especially for corn, would be the cracked kernels, the bees wings, the dust, and all of that extra product. What we call dockage, right? All of that extra material that can cause a challenge. No matter what the crop is, there's always going to be some of that foreign material. If we can get some of that removed out before we put into storage as well, that's definitely going to help prevent that caking, that buildup, that bridging, especially if we do have some high moisture pockets in that bin. But starting off with good quality grain going into the bin, step one. And if you need to work around that bin and end up needing to go inside, that could be a whole podcast episode itself, but really focusing on, if we do have to go in, have we tried all other methods first? If we've got a situation where grain isn't flowing out, have we tried getting that grain to move, externally on the outside, working on the outside of the bin, before we ever have to make that decision on going inside the bin?
I tell you what, Angie, I am a terribly impatient person. My wife can attest to that. And I know that it is tempting to get in a grain bin or get a job done and just hurry up and do it rather than waiting for somebody. Yep. What a lot of people don't realize is on the commercial side, we are required by OSHA to fill out grain bin entry permits every time we go into a grain bin. One of those requirements is we have to list who is on the outside of the bin spotting. And so this isn't, to me, this is commonplace because this is what we do every day on the commercial side. And we go into the bins multiple times per year because we keep filling them up. Where on the farm, you're emptying each bin once or twice per year. So it's a very different scenario, but take that extra time. Either bring over a teenager or higher that can be that person that watches for you, or bring over your wife or somebody that's competent, knows what's going on, and can communicate with you, because it is something that's, there are grain bin deaths every year, and it's an unfortunate reality, and so that's why it's something that we take so seriously, because it's nobody wants it to be them or on their watch. So I could not agree with that one more.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest ones. Besides youth related fatalities, these grain bin deaths. I mean, North Dakota ranked second just a few years ago in the number of grain bin entrapments, and it was during that really, really wet harvest year. I mean, there was a lot of crop that went in the bin really wet, and a lot of it wasn't harvested until the following spring. I mean, it was just a mess. And so the more we can, I really appreciate that you bring up the commercial side, because honestly, a lot of those practices, if we could put those types of practices in place on the farm side, I think we could help ourselves in preventing a lot of those situations. But you're spot on. If we're not in a situation where, we're constantly emptying and filling and emptying and filling, we're looking at more medium-term, long-term storage until we're ready to market and move that grain. And a lot of times that's dictated obviously by the markets, but we also have this fun thing called road restrictions in the spring. And so there's just weird periods that we have that there is a tiny window that we have to move all of this product before X restrictions come into play, or before the elevator can or can't take it. And so it just gets to be, like you had said, we're in a hurry. We got to go, go, go. And if we can put some of those practices into place, before we ever go into bin, here's our checklist. Here's our things that we got to do and think about and talk about before we even make that consideration. We could help prevent some deaths. And The other thing I think is important, and I'm sure on the commercial side, you guys live and breathe this, is just simply lockout, tagout. You talked about having a spotter come on the farm, whether that's another worker or a spouse or whatever that may be. Do they know how to shut down the tractor or where the breaker box is to turn the grain legs off and to turn the sweeps off? I think that's huge. And so we're helping everybody on the farm understand not the order of operations, but just where are the switches? Where do I shut things off? If it's a PTO operated auger, how do I shut the tractor off? And what do I need to do to make sure everything gets powered down before we ever enter, or if something tragic were to happen and that equipment is on. So just helping people know what is lockout, tagout, what that means, and how to power down equipment, especially during a case of an emergency.
I think that's a great point. And not just telling them, hey, it's the lever on the left side of the steering column. Go over to the tractor, show them this is the lever. Here's the button, whatever it is. And take that extra time. Once again, it goes back to just take a little bit of time, slow down just a little bit. I promise you it's going to be worth it in the end.
Absolutely. No, and I mean you're spot on. Getting the butt in the seat and practicing, right? I mean, it's not fair for someone to assume that we think we know that what we know, and that's not fair. Every time, the old saying, when you make an assumption, right?
Yep.
We shouldn't be doing that. It's just not fair to that other person. And so making sure that we do the teach back method, which sounds corny, but honestly, have that other person practice it and make sure that they're comfortable with it, because that skill that they learn from you could make the difference between life and death, literally. So I really appreciate that thought and being able to train everybody on the farm and take the time to do it.
So one other thing that we've kind of danced around a little bit here too, you've talked about ATV safety. It's August right now. October is going to be here before we know it. I know in McKenzie County especially, we've got a lot of patrons that's where a lot of roundups and gatherings are going to start happening. Let's talk a little bit, just real briefly, about some livestock safety tips while these guys go out and hopefully bring in what looks like it could be one of the best calf crops we've ever seen. Why don't you talk about that really briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So ATVs are all-terrain vehicles. They're great tools. I won't deny it. I own one. Fantastic tool. Great for fencing. Saves many miles of walking. But we do need to remember that they are extremely unstable, and so they're not designed like a car, right? So their wheels are different. The tread is even different. Everybody sees like the giant monster tread. That's on purpose. That's for a reason. That's to be able to drive on all terrain, which means that they don't handle well on pavement. They're not designed to be driven on road surfaces. So that's one thing to keep in mind. A lot of times these injuries and deaths occur because we're going way too fast on a road surface. And then, like you had mentioned too, in terms of rounding up the cattle getting cattle out of pasture, going way too fast in terrain that you just don't know. So cattle pastures are rough. I can attest to that. They are wet, they are bumpy, and so you got to know your limits. And ATVs are active rider, which means that you are constantly using your body to go over inclines, to go over jumps and logs. And so making sure, especially for young people, for kids, don't put kids on an adult ATV. They can't reach the foot pedal. If their feet can't reach the bottom base of that ATV, they shouldn't be driving it. It means that they're not going to be strong enough to actually maneuver it either. And I can't stress enough, wear a helmet. I know it's hot. I totally get it. It's not the most comfortable thing, but you only get one brain and you only get one life. And so we have to be able to live with that brain for hopefully 100 years, right? If life goes well for us. And so take care of that brain because you only get one. And the other thing I'll talk briefly about A lot of people have Rangers or side-by-sides, UTVs, whatever you want to call them. They're great tools as well. But instead they're not designed as active rider. It's just like a seat in a vehicle, but it has a roll bar, it has a ROPS, which I think is phenomenal. It adds a whole nother level of safety versus an ATV. However, that ROPS bar or that rollover protective structure is absolutely useless if you don't wear your seatbelt. Buckle that darn seatbelt when you're driving those UTVs, because that's going to make the difference in saving your life during a rollover situation. And so taking the time, if you're not a fan of helmets in terms of ATVs, get yourself a UTV. So all you have to do is simply buckle that seatbelt. It could make the difference between life and death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Angie. How do people get in touch with you if they have any questions? Is the best way to just go through Kelly Leo, our local extension agent? Or is there a direct way to get a hold of you if people have questions after this?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can certainly, it would be great. Contact your local county extension agent. They're great resources. But if you want to get a hold of me directly, don't be afraid to give me a call, 701-231-1873, or you can easily shoot me an email at angela.b.johnson@ndsu.edu.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Angie, for coming on. And is that the best way for those tying back to the earlier part? If you got questions about that farm safety camps, should they work through local or contact you directly?
Absolutely. Either way is just fine. We definitely, please reach out to your local extension agent, have them get you on, they'll start a list in terms of who's interested in camp so we can reach out to you in the future. But either way, contact your local agent, or you're more than welcome to contact me as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Angie, for coming on. I've really appreciated having you.
Yes, thank you so much, and have a great, safe harvest.
Thank you for tuning in to On the Horizon. If our conversation today sparked your interest, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Stay connected by following @Horizon Resources Co-op on Facebook and Instagram, and explore the world of agriculture with us. We're excited to continue bringing you real conversations with Horizon Resources industry partners, member owners, and employees, discovering more about your local neighbors and community friends. Until next time, keep looking towards the horizon.
Horizon Resources, solutions for your success.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be used or considered as an offer or a solicitation to buy or sell commodities. Horizon Resources does not make any representation, warranty, or guarantee as to the completeness, accuracy, timeliness, or suitability of any information contained within any part of this podcast. Horizon Resources does not accept any liability for any loss or damage, including without limitation loss of profit, which may arise directly or indirectly from use or reliance on such information. Whilst the information provided has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, Horizon Resources does not attest to its accuracy or completeness. Horizon Resources reserves the right to change any source without restriction or notice. The information herein is indicative only and is subject to change.